Am I live yet? All right, I'm back. I changed my T-shirt because cause how's my hair doing? All right, my hair's getting longer. Okay, so that's deliberate. Okay, so yeah, we have the new book, Pale Fire. This is going to be a little bit different than the other ones because this one's a lot shorter book. It's a lot shorter than the other ones, and maybe I could do it all in one video, a 30-minute video. But let's see. I'm going to break it up into four shorter videos and maybe a fifth video if it requires that. But this is the one I did a poll and people picked Vladimir Nabokov. And so this is a book I wanted. And I haven't read this. I don't think I've read this book for a long time. And I read it really young. And I don't know if I really understood it. But for a long time, I was going to do the Lolita, or at least the first 100 pages of Lolita, but I switched over to this one. So let's just talk generally. Okay, so Pale Fire is a 1962 novel by Vladimir Nabokov. The novel is presented as a 999 line poem titled Pale Fire, written by the fictional poet John Shade, with a foreword, lengthy commentary, and index written by Shade's neighbor and academic colleague Charles Kinbote. Together, these elements form a narrative in which the fictional author and in which both fictional authors are central characters. Nabokov wrote Pale Fire in 6061 after the success of Lolita had made him financially independent, allowing him to retire and return to Europe. So he's moved back to Europe, wrote this in Switzerland, and so he has a weird. So okay, so he wrote Pale Fire. It came out in 62, but he also, right after this, he translated Eugene Onegin by Pushkin, which, as I remember, he thought it was really good. That's what he did afterwards. So the poet John Shade, he's he might be like a little bit like Pushkin, Russian poets that we don't know about, but as an American, he seems more like in the realm of like Robert Frost, Wallace Stevens, or more conventional, not a modernist poet, more of a conventional earliest 20th century poet. So let's read a bit from the foreword. And this foreword, I kind of see it as kind of being a sort of fake academic type thing. So let's see what he says here. This is supposed to be Kinbote here, writing the foreword. Pale Fire, a poem in heroic couplets of 999 lines divided into four cantos, was composed by John Francis Shade, born July 5th, 1898. And he died in 59. He was born around the same time as Nabokov was born in 99, but he died in 77. And he wrote it during the last 20 days of his life at his residence in New Appalachia, wherever that is, somewhere. I'm guessing it's somewhere. I thought it was somewhere like, but I'll have to check that out. I just thought it was like upstate New York somewhere. The manuscript, mostly a fair copy from which the present text has been faithfully printed, consists of 80 medium-sized index cards. So he wrote on index cards a lot like Furbank and Nabokov. More people used to do that. I think even David Markson used to do that too. And then he just kind of talks about the, which cantos, one's longer than the others. And, it's like kind of fake academic kind of writing and stuff. So there's a bit of the introduction there. He doesn't really give away much, except for Kinbote is in control. Let's see. Nabokov breaks the novel Pale Fire into four parts: the foreword, the poem, the commentary, and the index. This study guide further breaks it down. Kinbote does not comment on every line of the poem. The sequence of line numbers sometimes contains gaps. Kinbote, so we're talking about the foreword here. Charles Kinbote introduces the poem Pale Fire. He is writing the foreword in 1959 in the fictional town of Cedar and Utana. He begins by describing the poem's form. It's 99 lines in heroic couplets. Heroic couplets are a rhyming pair of poetic lines in iambic pentameter. Iambic pentameter is a term describing the meter of length of lines in the poem. Meter is a term for the pattern and unstressed syllables in certain type of poetry. In iambic meter, every unstressed syllable is followed by a stressed syllable together. So dun 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 dun. Like how it starts out. I was the shadow of the waxwing slain by false azure in the window pane. I was the smudge of ash and fluff, and I lived on, flew on, and reflected sky. That doesn't. Let's see. So it has like a rhythm. Thus, in the heroic couplet of the poem, "Pale Fire Slain" rhymes with pain, and there are 5 iambic meter feet in each line. Like it just kind of goes over what I just read. I was the shadow of the waxwing sign by the false azure in the window pane. Kinbote gives other textual details of the poem composition, including how many lines were written on each index card. The poet, John Shade, composes the poem during the last 20 days of his life. Kinbote defends himself against criticisms of Shade, the poem, and especially himself. He admits he took charge of the manuscript even before Shade's body had reached the grave. He works with the publisher he trusts, good old Frank. Kinbote refused all requests to work with other Shade specialists as co-editors. The friendship between Kinbote and Shade is described. Kinbote considers Shade a very dear friend indeed, though they only knew each other for a few months. They became neighbors in February 1959 when Kinbote rented the house next door. Like Shade, Kinbote was teaching at Wordsmith College. He recalls his first meeting with Shade at lunchtime in the faculty club. A few days later, he gives Shade a ride home in his powerful Cramler car. Soon, Kinbote was seeing more and more of his celebrating neighbor. His claims other academics became envious of their friendship and recounts some of their slights and insults he received from others. His and Shade's friendship was on that higher, exclusive intellectual level, Kinbote claims. Kinbote concludes that with some remarks about his commentary of the poem, he advised readers to consult his notes first before reading the poem. Readers should then consult the notes again while reading the poem, and afterwards they should consult them a third time. So as to complete the picture, he adds, without my notes, Shade's text has no human reality at all. He signs and dates the foreword October 1959, Cedar, Utah. So, yeah, Nabokov did teach at Cornell. So, Cornell is, or, and then he had, oh, it's in Iowa. Okay. So, but yeah, so I'm just guessing it's close to Gary, Indiana, and all that. Okay, it's a Ivy League school. Okay, so the foreword uses dramatic irony to paint 2 different pictures of Kinbote. In dramatic irony, readers know more about something than the characters do themselves. Kinbote presents himself as Shade's dear friend and as a sensitive and indispensable commentator on Shade's work. At the same time, Kinbote's own words and the testimony of Shade's friends, colleagues, and neighbors show readers Kinbote is wrong in his estimation of himself. The claim that their friendship was very close is undercut by Kinbote's own remarks. He claims he began seeing more and more of his celebrating neighbor. His very next statement described not social contact with Shade, but Kinbote spying on Shade through the windows. He literally sees more and more Shade, but in a creepy rather than a friendly context. He also suggests, in all modesty, something entirely immodest, even vain. Shade intended to ask my advice after reading his poem. Precisely because Kinbote says it, a reader doubts Shade planned to ask his advice or read the poem to him. Any similar irony bedevils Kinbote's presentation of himself as concerned with that higher exclusive intellectual level. He makes occasional abrupt references to the physical situation and its discomfort. He suddenly disrupts his account of the poem's composition to remark, "There is a very loud amusement park in front of my present lodgings." He would like to be making lofty aesthetic and intellectual comments in a comfortable and leisurely setting, but his only few remarks about where he is give the picture of a hounded and irritable fugitive. There's a complex play of irony when Kinbote writes, "For better or worse, it is the commentator who has the last word." These are the last words of the forewords, so in the literal sense, the statement is true, but the use of dramatic irony has already shown that how Kinbote's meanings are subject to revision in the reader's mind. Kinbote's claim to be a dear friend of Shade is not the last word in the matter. Kinbote also occasionally lets other voices be heard in the foreword, much to his detriment. Thus, in a grocery store, a woman gives a flat, contemptuous account of the Kinbote character. "You're a remarkably disagreeable person," and adds, "What's more, you're insane." In recounting it for the reader, Kinbote dismisses the insult as nonsense, but his commentary fails to overcome the woman's objections to him. As a 20th century critic and author, Mary McCarthy remarked, "Readers might suspect the views of the woman in the grocery store are widely shared and knew why." In instance, the commentator Kinbote literally has the last word in what he writes, the latter two-thirds of the book, but he does not have the last word because dramatic irony often gives his words a meaning they didn't have and cannot control. The relationship between Kinbote's commentary and Shade's poem is like the friendship between the two men. In Kinbote's mind, he's the perfect commentator as he is the friend, but his exaggerated claims about the importance of the commentary makes readers suspicious of him. He says it is time to turn to the poem, but he acts like someone who cannot bear to exit the stage and leave the limelight. He pleads with the reader to read his commentary first before the poem and then return to his commentary twice more. So, yeah, this is a real interesting setup. Let's see, where were we at? Okay, so not very much time. So, yeah, this is so like so there's other books like this. I mean, even like David Foster Wallace is kind of ripping this off a bit, by having, and even Julian Rios with Larva, and Sorrentino, and even Flann O'Brien at Swim Two Birds has a kind of quality of you know different parts of the same book undermining the other parts and stuff, and reading and stuff, and even like Harry Matthews. I was just reading like some of the stuff about Harry Matthews, like stuff that you read at the end of the book kind of totally undermines what happened in before, and so Nabokov might be the originator. I mean, besides somebody like Tristram Shandy or some others of metafiction. God, I'm rubbing my eyes on all these videos. Let's see what else do we got here. Let's see. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, let me press play on that. Okay, so I'm gonna make this short, and in the next video we're gonna let's see. Okay. Okay, we're going right now. Is there anybody watching? Any questions? Okay, so we're close to 50 minutes. Let's just cut it there. Okay, so in the next video, I'm going to be reading the poem and commenting on the poem a little bit.